This music's great. I already like this. Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Dogboat333, and welcome to Hearts of Iron 4, the new order. Ordem y Progresso. This is a sub-mod, little demo, created by the Cold Southern Springs dev team. This is a sub-mod team dedicated to creating content and adding interesting stuff in South America. Because I don't know if you guys know, but South America is traditionally viewed as the most boring region to play in with Paradox games. Or one of the most boring, at least. And with TNO, it kind of holds true because none of the countries have content, and there wasn't really an explicit plan to add content to those nations anytime soon. So the Cold Southern Springs team hopped in and said, you know what, we'll rectify that. We'll go ahead and create some new stuff. And just have some fun. And do some wacky stuff in Brazil. And Argentina, Chile, Bolivia, Peru. I know Peru is quite a point of fascination with those devs. I'm not entirely sure why. I don't pay attention to the memes, so I don't know. But, anyhow, so they dropped this demo sometime this week, I believe. I marked it on my calendar. They dropped it this past Saturday. And I tried streaming it, actually, on my Twitch channel. But unfortunately for me, my internet kept crapping out, and so I couldn't get a dedicated stream going. But I got some time now, and so I figured I'll sit down and give this sub-mod some justice, just because I've been really interested in it. I've been following its progress for a while now, and I want to send the devs some support, and just see what they're doing. So, we're going to go ahead and start a new game. I'm working on, I'm also recording Sverdlovsk in between this, but I figured I'll take a break from that and do something different. It's still TNO, but it's a different region of the world, which I haven't played in a very long time. I've just been stuck in Russia. And now I've come to Brazil. I've finally listened to all the YouTube comments, and here I am. So, we only got one start scenario, so let's do it. Ordem y Progresso. Fireworks explode over Rio de Janeiro, ushering in the new year. For many Brazilians, 1962 offers a ray of hope, but for those in power, it's filled with uncertainty. The public cheers as Brazil's football team fights for a World Cup victory as tensions rise in the Atlantic and bureaucrats scramble to avoid economic collapse. We'll go ahead and select a scenario. And here we are. We only have one real option, if you couldn't tell, in this demo, which is Brazil. So let's check out the brief history. Brazil's a land of contrast. It has a booming economy, but poverty is everywhere. It remains in a Cold War with the African Reich Commissars, but it's not involved with the oil-fed embargo against Germany, a state which is a liberal democracy, but where countless remain disenfranchised. Brazil's economy will continue growing as long as the trade continues, but its politics are a knife's edge. While Brazil's future looks bright, those in power know that it could come tumbling down at a moment's notice. So here we are. Brazil. Oh, the music's restarting again, but we're gonna have to go ahead and start her up. But we'll have something funky to jam with while we're here. Ow! I'll apologize right now before we start. I don't speak Portuguese, either the European or the Brazilian dialects, or any of the little African or Indonesian subsects. I don't speak any of it, so I'm probably going to butcher it. My best understanding is of 4 years of Spanish that I took. I know it's not a perfect comparison, but I know they're similar, so that's the best I got. So, bear with me. I apologize if I'm going to butcher any Portuguese. It's a beautiful language. I just can't speak it worth a shit. So, with that, welcome to the República dos Estados Unidos do Brasil, the southern juggernaut, the Republic of the United States of Brazil, the largest country in South America, and perhaps the strongest. It's always had the potential to be a great power, but all ships are sunk by their sailors. consumed by a cycle of instability following the coup by a small clique of officers that ended the Brazilian Empire and birthed the First Republic. The Republic was plagued by corruption and was largely cover for oligarch interest, with rigged elections, voter harassment, and many other sorts of injustices that did nothing but deeply divide the nation to a breaking point, which appeared in the form of the Revolution of 1930. Backed by an alliance of the opposition, reformists, and disgruntled military officers, Getulio Vargas was thrust into power with the mandate of restoring stability to a broken Brazilian nation, thus starting the Vargas era. With the revolution successfully deposing the First Republic, Vargas was focused on repairing the damage of the Great Depression, suppressing the oligarchs, and restoring order to Brazil. Dissolving Congress until the adoption of the 1934 Constitution, Vargas had to face not only one, not two, not four, but 3 revolutions, and pushed by constitutionalists, communists, and fascists, allowing him to consolidate power and perpetuate his presidency. Citing instability and internal division, Vargas dissolved the legislature and invoked emergency executive powers, thus starting the period known as the Estado Novo, a civic dictatorship under which all parties were banned, dissidents were stamped out, and a massive cult of personality was built around Vargas. The beginning of a Second World War put international attention to Brazil as a possible contender, both the Allies and the Axis certainly having tried to bring the nation into their side during the conflict through various means. However, Vargas would keep a policy pragmatic, equal distance between both sides, but it'd be the Axis' own folly that would force the nation onto the side of the Allies in 1942, as their submarines began targeting Brazilian ships in the Caribbean. Vargas adopted democratization measures while retaining control through political machination. Brazil participated in the Battle of the Atlantic, the BEF, led by Marshal João Baptista Mascarenhas. This is where it gets tough. Fuck. Mascarenhas de Moraes and General Henrique Teixeira Lott were sent to Britain to assist in the defense against the German invasion, fighting bravely but ultimately having to retreat in shame across the Atlantic with several thousand dead. War almost reached the mainland when a tense standoff occurred along the Andes between Chile and all of its neighbors, Brazil forming secret mutual defense pact with former in preparation for a possible conflict. Cooler heads prevailed in the end as the standoff was ended, as a peace between the Axis and Allies was signed. Although humiliated, Brazil escaped major consequences for their participation in the war. With defeat, Vargas would return to his policies before joining the Allies. Democratization was stalled once more, and Vargas would continue to rule by decree, but political opponents like Carlos Lacerda and American involvement began breaking apart his hold over the nation. Despite attempts to mitigate the situation became unbearable after an assassination attempt on Lacerda was blamed on Vargas, culminating in 1949 with a military coup and popular uprising. Fleeing to Sao Paulo, under protection of Governor Ademar de Barros, General Teixeira Lott intervened to negotiate an agreement where Vargas was allowed to leave power while keeping his reforms, preventing a military junta from taking over, though the military managed to push for the passing of the national security laws, banning communist and fascist parties and leaving ground for the military to intervene in political matters. Following the coup and with the end of the Vargas era, new parties such as centrist PSD, the Vargas PTB, the conservative UDN, and the populist PSP were quickly formed, with first elections nearing, these being a close race, but ultimately Eduardo Gomes of the UDN would come out on top, with João Cafe Filho of the PSP as his vice president. Gomes sought to cement Brazil's democratic institutions in a progressive alignment towards the OFN. While Gomes is normally seen as successful, he's often also criticized for a laid-back attitude towards military interference and corruption. In 1955, the PSD's candidate, Jusenko Kubitschek, was able to come out on top, cementing a political coalition with the PTB, as João Goulart was also able to win the vice presidency. Despite their victory, the tensions mounting up to the election led to Carlos Lacerda and Plinio Salgado refusing to accept the results, causing both groups to begin plans for a coup. Becoming aware of the potential danger, Marshal Lott moved, routing the integralists and forcing Salgado into exile, Lacerda moving away to lick his wounds, all while Lott's popularity soared. The 1960 election saw the defender of democracy, Marshal Lott, running under a joint PSD-PTB ticket. Despite his popularity, the race ultimately still proved close, with the UDN coming close in second place, but Ademar de Barros taking a good portion of the vote from the latter. The real shock was a result of the vice presidential race. Jânio Quadros of the UDN swept the polls of his opponents. Now two very different men of two very different political backgrounds must make their relationship work for the future of Brazil, lest political turmoil threaten to consume the nation again. So, we got a couple parties, which we'll have to go over, of course. The PSP-PTB coalition. Coalition was born for the purpose of the election of 55, with Jusenko Kubitschek at the helm of presidency and João Goulart running for the vice presidency. It became a fire-forged alliance after having to face a failed coup. Since then, and under the auspices of Getulio Vargas, the coalition is formalized and becoming more than just a mere electoral ticket, with the parties voting together on key issues, campaigning together, and watching each other's back for their shared common interests. So the PSD, the Partido Social Democrático, a liberal party seeking to represent the centrist current of Brazilian politics aligned with Vargasism. The party relies on agrarianism and a powerful network of political influence in rural areas to maintain its main support base, and functions as a middle point of compromise in Brazilian political issues. We have the president, Henrique Teixeira Lott, the incumbent president of Brazil, retired army marshal, participated in the defense of the British Isles during the Second World War. Back home, he was a staunch supporter of Vargas in the army and was the one who negotiated between the latter and the army for a peaceful transition of power in 1949, himself becoming the figurehead of a constitutionalist faction in the military. Preventing a coup from occurring in 1955, he became known as the Defender of Brazilian Democracy, a title which saw him thrust into PSD-PTB ticket in 1960 on the back of a semi-legendary status. His presidency has so far been a moderate one, although it has continued the policies of his predecessor. It has had to face labor unrest in the recent outbreak of the Lobster War. From here, Jusenko Kubitschek, the former president of Brazil and the public face of the PSD. Under his presidency, a policy of industrialization and the great public projects were undertaken with great success. Foreign investment soared, infrastructure was expanded, and Brasilia was built. He remains an important figure within this party, and running for a second term is not out of a table for him and his peers. Next, Tancredo Neves, the current Prime Minister of Finance and the standard face of the PSD. A liberal centrist, he has been a main supporter and architect of President Kubitschek's and Lott's policies. Believes that Brazil is currently going through, his greatest days. A thing which should be reinforced. Next, we got the Partido Trabalhista Brasileiro, the Brazilian Workers' Party, I assume. The BTP is a center-left party directly under the mantle of heirs to Vargas. It's no secret that the man still runs the show from the background. The party relies on laborism and the working class as their main support base. They act as the mainstream left-wing's current of Brazilian politics. Next, we got João Goulart, the former vice president under Kubitschek, the current president of the Chamber of Deputies, and the political heir to Vargas as leader of PTB. Humble and diligent, he often acts as a public figure for the coalition and is a go-to person for negotiating with unions. Then, Leonel Brizola, the current governor of Rio Grande do Sul, a grandee of a PTB and the current brother-in-law of Goulart. As governor, he has greatly improved the general welfare of the people of Rio Grande do Sul. Through rapid construction of public schooling and an array of reforms, he's solely consolidated position as a national leader of BTB. Next, we got the União Democrática Nacional, the United Democratic Union, something like that. The UDN is the mainstream right-wing party in Brazil, gathering groups between classical liberals to hardline conservatives to progressives, though the main thing keeping them united is perhaps their opposition to the democratic populism that they see in Vargasism. Excuse me, I need to take a sip of water. Unlike the PSD and their BTB, the UDN doesn't cater to one specific social class or group, instead seeking to appeal to the diverse pool of interests aligned with the right wing. First off, Jânio Quadros, the eccentric and charismatic vice president of Brazil, running under a conservative anti-corruption platform, he quite metaphorically sweep the race, far outcompeting the other candidates to the surprise of many. Frequently being the pushback within the government, he and President Lott must make their relationship work for the sake of the stability of Brazil. Then we got Carlos Lacerda, aligned with conservative current Brazilian politics, but not a conservative himself exactly, being closer aligned to an idea of cosmopolitanism and social liberalism revolving around that in the United States of America. One of the most fierce enemies of Vargasism in Brazil, he is among the causes of the fall of the Estado Novo due to his journalism, coupled with an assassination attempt on him that was pinned on Vargas. Subsequent political legacy that's been built upon the prospect of erasing the legacy of Varguism. Then we got the Partito Social Progressista, the PSP, Social Progressive Party. The ideology of the PSP is hard to find beyond their adherence to Ademar de Barros. The party's rhetoric is generally populistic and receives support from the poor of Sao Paulo, but gathers much of its strength from the social elites, and due to Sao Paulo being Brazil's most populous state, their numerical adherence is quite high. We got Ademar de Barros, the current governor of Sao Paulo and two-time presidential candidate in 1955 and 1960, getting a considerable share of the vote in the latest election. He rose to prominence during the Estado Novo, becoming a supporter of Vargas and his main middleman in retaining control of Sao Paulo, which made him quite a bit of connections that he's used to keep himself in power as governor, building a political career around it. Next, we have Getulio Vargas Filho, the youngest son of his namesake, and a rising star in the political world, establishing himself in Sao Paulo in the 40s. He became his father's eyes and ears in the state, leading him to become a close partner of de Barros on the PSP. His position of deputy, and with de Barros thinking he's under his control, Vargas Filho stands as a promising successor to the current governor. And then we got the Partido de Representação Popular, the PRP, a far-right nationalist and traditionalist party created from the remnants of the integralist movement in Brazil. Due to their participation in the 1955 coup attempt, the party is currently being suppressed. Despite being led by Plinio Salgado from exile, the party suffers from an internal split between integralist and fascist, with Salgado remaining adamant that integralism predates it and is separate from fascism, while the leader in his absence, Miguel Real, favors a faction that wishes to align itself with Italian-style fascism. Despite very minor popular support outside of the areas from the south, the PRP holds some influence in the armed forces. So that leads us into the features. We can protect Brazilian democracy through maneuvering, reforms, and alliances, or see it die. We can industrialize Brazil and develop it to new heights fitting to an aspiring international power. We can consolidate a foreign policy either by aligning with an international bloc or becoming the regional hegemon of the South America. Avante Brasil, that's what I have to say. Destiny lies ahead. So, let's start with some quick little assignments for commander. We'll go with Humberto de Alencar Castillo Branco as a field marshal. And for the general, let's go with Artur da Costa y Silva. We got that going. We can do... This is one of the neat little things that they got. Development... Oh, get the fuck out of here. Don't show me that shit. Development... We got development and we got elections. Elections are pretty cool. I'm not quite sure how these are going to work, but we'll wait and see, I suppose. I didn't play quite long enough in order to get a grasp on it. But let's focus on development for now. The Trans-Amazonian Highway is the most ambitious infrastructure project in Brazil's history, aiming to provide access to resources in the Amazon's interior to create a land route to Peru and Colombia. The highway is 18.1% complete. We're currently allocated 10% of our military factories to the highway, costing $40 million and negative 0.05 daily political power, allowing development to progress by 11% every year. I think we'll go ahead and we'll start with... Because we have these edicts. This is kind of a unique little thing. We can go ahead and we can encourage migration, subsidize mechanization, requisition assets, or sponsor industry. So, Northeast is lightly undeveloped. The Amazon is untouched. Central West. Southeast is partially... Southeast has, let me remind, Parnia, Sao Paulo. Southeast is the obvious one to go with, and it's not a bad one by any means. Got 33 million people there, it seems, so that's not, clearly not a bad move. 12 million in the south, about 3 million in Central West, but it's completely untouched. So it makes me think we might want to, Yeah, I don't think... We can't even do anything with the Amazonia. I think let's work on Central West right now, actually. Probably working on mechanization. That'll be good. And this is neat. We got population, inflation, GDP. Man, it's like toolbox theory dropped early, boys. Damn, this is cool. I like this. So let's take a look at everyone, all the things we got. First off, we have our leader, Henrique Teixeira Lot, the 22nd president of Brazil, and in his heart, a military man still. Old general, a little bit of extra political power, a little war support. I like it. Lot developed his military career over the span of 4 decades, not through nepotistic appointments, but using skill. With the entry of Brazil into the Second World War, Lot was sent as a military attaché to America. However, history would force Lot deeper into the war. With the German invasion of Britain, Lot would work closely with Field Marshal Mascarenhas de Moraes and commanding the Brazilian Expeditionary Force, yet, despite their best efforts, the island would fall. Brazil was forced to retreat. Lot would be promoted for his efforts, becoming a brigadier general, and praised as a war hero. Lot worked on plans to defend Brazil from outside invasion, maintaining his ties to the Americans. As the Estado Novo regime fell in 1949, Lot would be one of those standing among Vargas' close circle of advisors. Deciding to act instead of going with his arms crossed, Lot proved instrumental in reaching an agreement that guaranteed elections would be held, and Vargas was unharmed. He was personally involved in making sure that this agreement was maintained as he warned radical members of the military to allow the transition of power to occur. Lot would be the Minister of War throughout the 50s for both Eduardo Gomes and Juscelinko Kubitschek's government. Lot, known for his dedication, stopped a coup attempt in 1955, ensuring that Brazilian democracy would survive and prosper. In 1960, Lot himself ran for the presidency, winning under the banner of the PSD. Lot now leads the largest nation in South America. However, Lot is still a general at heart, not a politician. Issues that plague Brazil, such as rampant inflation, he has been unable to deal with effectively. This, combined with the fact that Jânio Quadros won the vice presidency, a man with very different ideas for Brazil than Lot, turns governing into a challenge just as big as the wars that Lot fought in. So it's certainly complicated matters that we're stuck in. But I have faith in Mr. Lot. I think he might do okay. So let's go through all the focuses. We only have spirits. We only have 6. First off, we have nepotism in the army. Only low. The beast to the shadowy puppets, discontent bleeds. Members of the army, long neglected a real chance of promotion, are seen now for their value to the armed forces, not by favors. The tug-of-war, however, is not over yet. Next, we have an overbearing military. While the Constitution states the elected president and legislature hold the power in Brazil, this is not an idea shared by everyone. In barracks and poker games between some generals, it's discussed what Brazil would be like if an unfortunate hypothetical scenario were to occur and the military were to be in charge. The Fourth Republic was born out of the fire of a military coup, and although the 50s there were many close calls where a coup could have occurred. However, through the work of some generals and politicians such as Lot, the military has been appeased and coups have been so far prevented. But, if a disastrous event was to occur in Brazil, the military may be forced to intervene. And that wouldn't be good. Probably, I don't know. Next, we got rampant corruption. Brazil had a disease, even a child could tell you that it is corruption. Political corruption and its consequences plague Brazil, from local town councils to state governments, the army and federal government as well. Its prevalence proves a problem for every leader, as people do not work for the greater good of Brazil, but for personal benefits. Political corruption will need to be removed from its roots, lest further governments continue to be plagued by its consequences. But while some leaders may fight against it, some may embrace it. Next, we've got rapid industrialization. We're taking a lot of hits to consumer goods factories, which I'm really not liking. But the rest of us is okay, I'll take that. Throughout the 50s and now 60s, Brazil's gone under massive industrialization. This has been encouraged by the Gomes, Kubitschek, and Lot presidencies, which have helped to foster industrialization. Dozens of new factories are being set up and resources are being extracted to fuel Brazil's industrial boom. This has caused the Brazilian economy to heavily rely on oil supplies, not just from Petrobras, but also from the Middle East. It has helped cause a population explosion and rapid GDP growth. If this growth continues, the oil supply unaffected, Brazil's economy will continue to boom. Next, we've got the lobster conflict. The lobster wars, which lasted for the last 2 years, must be brought to an end. Brazil's territorial waters are now constantly breached by both African fishermen and German corporate fishing vessels. Meanwhile, the Brazilian fishermen are left to suffer with their rightful catch being stolen from them and their boats attacked when they confront these vessels. It's up to Lot to deal with this threat and win the lobster war, whether by the pen or the sword. And then finally, the Trans-Amazonian Highway. President Lot's grand ambition, a roadway stretching across the inhospitable Amazon, opening the rainforest to development and connecting Brazil to Colombia. So we better get a bit of consumer goods factories. Kind of sucks, but could be worse. So we got all that mostly dealt with. Let's take a look at decisions. We have the Lot Quadros power struggle. Their relationship is unsteady, with both attempting to gain the upper hand and make their vision for Brazil a reality. While the decision their administration may shift the balance of power, the strength of their relationship will affect how their government weathers a potential crisis. So, the relationship is currently satisfactory. The 1960 presidential election left Brazil's executive divided between President Teixeira Lot, supported by the left-wing PSD-PTB coalition, and Vice President Jânio Quadros, backed by the UDN. Both have publicly promised to work with the other, but behind closed doors, tensions are high, and a power struggle is brewing. As Brazil navigates turbulent times, both have the opportunity to grow their influence, but drastic moves may tear their relationship apart. So we got plenty that we can do to improve things, it seems. But that's that. We have the Brazilian Armed Forces next. Brazil's armed forces have been a constant source of concern for Brazil's government, even more so after the 1955 failed coup attempt. The military is plagued by debilitating nepotism, which impairs combat readiness, and loyalty of military leadership is tenuous at best. Internally, the military faces a power struggle between three groups: the pro-democracy constitutionalists, the moderate Sorbona, and the antagonistic hardliners. The faction in control and the level of military loyalty will determine how much instability the military will tolerate before intervention is seen as the only option. The president must act wisely, for their actions towards the military and on issues of national security will affect all of these properties. Interesting stuff. Okay. Loyalty, nepotism, rise. So we got a couple of decisions that we have to balance. Now before we continue, let's get some research going. We got some okay. I don't think we have to worry too much about war. So let's get working on some industry. Civilian construction will be a great start. Horizontal organization, very nice. And let's do transistor computing, get that research speed bonus. Got no divisions, basic training. I'm not too worried about that. We'll train a few for now. For the 5 of these guys. Not the best units, but can't exactly change that quite yet. So let's just go ahead and exercise them. And yeah. So we got some stuff starting off the bat, which is interesting. So it reminds me of the US tree where Nixon has already done stuff. Although it doesn't look like we have anything funky or funny like pocket liberals. And yeah, bit of a shame, but I think it would be funny. And I think it's cool. Helps a little bit with the development going. I have a bit of an idea of what I want to do, but we can't do anything in quite yet, so let's go ahead and get some fireworks in Rio. A year has passed, and Lotus has gotten a lot of the work done. Open Brasilia, managing the economy, beginning the construction of a Trans-Amazonian highway, and dealing with the coffee strikes. After all this, Lot is exhausted and needs a break. The New Year celebration presents the perfect opportunity for this. While others throng through the streets, celebrating another year past without nuclear annihilation and sharing their hope that the Hawaiian missile crisis will continue to de-escalate, Lot will spend it in a study, taking a well-deserved rest. Let Quadros and Neves take care of the government just for this week. Then we'll be back to work for this old general. I like it. So you might be wondering what we're going to do. I kind of want to do a somewhat laid-back, nothing too confrontational or dramatic. Probably not a military coup. Nothing disastrous. I know enough Americans have... America's done enough to fuck Brazil up a little bit, so I don't want to add to that if I don't have to. So I'll do something... I don't know, I'll play it by ear. I'm not going to shoot for any of the crazy paths. I don't know who I want to side with quite yet. But we'll play it by ear and we'll see what we end up doing. That's what I say. So, we got some little wooden boats. We're getting nowhere, Enrique. Odilio Denis was a broad man, the type of man who was quick to anger and faster to laugh. He could always be trusted to speak his mind, to tell a colleague exactly where they fell down and where they excelled. Though they were in many ways opposite, President Lot had held Denis as one of his closest friends for years. Unfortunately, Lot didn't have the capacity for his war minister's bluntness at the moment. Both men were hunched over a large war table, depicting the waters affected by Brazil's latest national emergency. Wooden figurines of the proud Brazilian Navy laid scattered on its surface in the latest rough battle plan Lot had devised, attempt to halt the thousands of pirates infesting Brazilian seas and stealing Brazilian capital. Already the pirates had taken millions of dollars worth of fish and lobster from Brazil's waters, putting hundreds of fishermen out of business. Lot had been repositioning the figures with Denis's input for hours to no avail. The president sighed. Resources are limited, Odilio. We have to find a way to end these pirates with our current task force. Unless you have ships we can reassign in your back pocket. Denis folded his arms and stared intently at a large cluster of ships. Defense is getting us nowhere. Our destroyers are wasted trying to screen out every ramshackle pirate that steals from us. We need to strike at where they take their product, the German vessels and pirate convoys. Attack, not defend. I don't know if this is really an accent that I'm doing, or if it's accurate. Well, I'll just go with it. Denis had preached his aggressive tactics through their planning, but Lot was unconvinced. A more diplomatic approach, if he could make it work, might solve the problem without sending every Brazilian soldier thousands of miles from home. The remnants of the Free France still had a decent amount of ships, and surely the Germans weren't completely unreasonable. One thing was certain, the Lobster War had to be solved immediately before any lives were lost. Fine, let's... Someone was knocking on the door. Quite insistently, too. Denis walked from the table and flung it open, revealing a nervous-looking secretary. What? The president asked not to be disturbed. The secretary nervously smiled at him, peeking around the bulky door to scare the president. Sir? Quadros has been calling you for half an hour. Following is the first part of a report on the political situation ahead of the upcoming legislative and presidential elections. The next 4 paragraphs summarize major parties and their dispositions. Note that there is also a host of minor parties that align with the below. 2. The PSD and PTB were a linked two-party coalition of the traditional of what Brazilians call Varguismo, the political theories and methodology of Getulio Vargas. PTB, more left-leaning, similar in ideology of CNPP, in that it focuses on labor and unions. The PSD is a party of the recently elected President Lott. Centrist to center-left in political alignment, the closest American analog is the Republicans. The UDN is a main conservative party aligned with the Vice President Quadros. Its most powerful opposition to the PSD-PTP bloc is a favor integration with the OFN. I advise Sextate and DCIA to direct preferential support to them in order to support American interests. The PSP is a populist party with the flamboyant Ademar de Barros at its helm. Falls well behind the UDN, to say nothing of the PSD-PTB. Currently has no discernible pathway to power unless some sort of political crisis occurs. Prudent to watch them if that does happen. 5. The PRP, led by the exiled Plínio Salgado, is a right-wing nationalist party adhering to extremist and eccentric integralism ideology. They are, due to the prudence of the previous presidents of Brazil, currently suppressed. However, it is advisable to keep an eye on them. Gordon. Duly noted, DCIA. Let me take a look at the economy real quick. Deficit's kind of nasty, I'm not going to lie. Yes, Quadros, what does So incredibly urgent. Lot laid back in his chair, eyes closed. Johnny Quadros was hardly his ideal of the ideal vice president, but, like it or not, Quadros was who the people wanted. Could it be effective on occasion? Certainly, but Quadros could also be, abrasive. Lot, I've been writing for 2 hours. Listen. Are you listening? These Argentinians, they're building this dam, right? And it'll be bad for us, for Brazil. Terrible! So I need your signature or something to get them to stop. I think. You took a very long time, sir. Johnny, are you drunk? Lot was irritated. He had sent Quadros to Argentina to negotiate with them over the dam, not to get drunk. You took too long. So yeah, I had a little drink. Tiny. These Argentinians... These Argentinians, they aren't going to see me until tomorrow anyway. Why not? 4 hours ago, when I started calling, I was sober. You just took too long. This is entirely inappropriate, Johnny-O. I don't even understand what you want from me. Let's have this conversation tomorrow. Bullshit. I've been calling for 8 hours, Lot, just to say the thing. Say, that I can do it. That I can pay back construction cost. I think that's it. Say it. Say it, come on. They make me pay to make calls from here, Enrique. Fine. Do whatever you need to do, Johnny-O, but tomorrow I need a full report on whatever it is you're trying to tell me, understood? Yes, I will do those things. Good night, Enrique. Thanks. Be quick next time. Sleep it off, Johnny-O. So we're not producing support equipment. Let's go ahead and rectify that. We don't need many tanks, I think, but support equipment would be good. Fireworks in Rio. Let me go ahead and pop this up real quick. I'll go ahead and up the Trans-Amazonian Highway. 14% every year. That's not too bad. So far, so good. Might allocate some more just because we're not building anything factorized anyway right now. So let's get working on... We have 2 different points. Operation Lobster and Coffee with Neves. I think let's get working on Operation Lobster. For the past few years, we have had to deal with what the press has called the Lobster War. The territorial waters are subject to continuous incursions by African pirates, foreign merchant boats, and German warships. Our local fishermen are harassed in their livelihoods suffer, while wealthy vultures in the so-called capital of the world feast on our lobster. Just recently, a Japanese couple were taken hostage by pirates, resulting in a major diplomatic crisis. Laws declare that he will end this war. No more will German naval craft violate our waters. No more will African fishers steal our lobster. To this end, Lot has arranged a meeting with Admiral Ardano Toscano to promise him the ships and resources he needs. In return, he asks for one guarantee from the Admiral, that he will make Brazil victorious in this conflict. Francisca, one of the millions crowding Rio's Copacabana beach to celebrate the advent of the brand new year, cheered as the first of the fireworks began to light up the skies. She kept her 3 children clustered tight to her against the flow and crush of a crowd. Hundreds of thousands of Brazilians who traveled to the beach for miles around to share in the joy of a new year. Food trucks and tents were set up all over the white sands and were left empty, so as their owners joined the raucous celebrations. The fireworks were absolutely magnificent this year. Vibrant greens, blues, reds, every color imaginable lit up the skies, banishing all of Rio's darkness. For Francisca, this year had brought far too much of that darkness into her life. But now, as Rio was filled with light, her own problems seemed to evaporate in a glow. Brazil was not kind to single mothers, but Francisca, surrounded by hope, felt accepted for the first time in decades. Things would be different tomorrow. She would take her children back to the cramped apartment they called home, go back to 6 hours of sleep, desperately taking in between constant work, go back to watching rich men walk past those even worse off than her without even a glance. But as she watched those brilliant lights of a new year lighting up Rio's sky, Francisca thought about how things were slowly getting better. Every day, things seemed just a little bit cheaper. Every paycheck, a little bit bigger. The world just the tiniest bit more equitable. Despite everything, she was proud of her country. So long as Brazil kept it to its course, Francisca might just be okay. Hope was in the air. Well, that's nice. I think for now we got a okay amount of progress going on our highway. Let's do 25%. The Reich has lost conquest. Control. The helicopters touched down in Recife, and the former hostages are on their way back to the Japanese embassy. We did it, gentlemen. The room burst into cheers, as Brazil's biggest diplomatic headache was solved. Months of negotiation, threats, and tracking had finally paid off. 2 Japanese tourists on vacation, the daughter and son-in-law of one of Japan's richest men, had been kidnapped by pirates off the Brazilian coast for ransom 4 months ago. The Japanese began pressuring and even threatening the Brazilian government within days, demanding the tourists be found and returned immediately. The situation, already a massive incident, was further complicated when it was revealed that the pirates were hiding out in free French waters, sheltering behind a tiny but aggressive navy that had no interest in ousting the pirates for free. In the end, no shots were fired, but millions of dollars were spent on bribes, information, appeasement, and overtime. Brazil's relationship with Japan would forever bear the black mark of this crisis, but at the moment, none of the beleaguered diplomats in the crisis room could bring themselves to care. Most of them were operating on 2 hours of sleep, and the older members of the diplomatic corps had already begun filtering out of the room to catch a well-deserved nap. The rest were celebrating a hard-fought victory, a statement to the world that Brazil could solve its own problems, without and even in spite of German and Japanese interests. In a way, as a newest member of the diplomatic corps would refer to it later, it was never a victory in a long struggle against fascism. His co-workers made fun of him for that one. But is he wrong? So the Sorbona is the biggest, the moderates, it seems. I want to go ahead and work towards promoting some loyal officers. So we'll go ahead and do that. I don't know if we have to do anything. It doesn't say there's anything to be done. Looks like the influence is currently contested, but so far I think we're doing okay on that regard. Operation Lobster. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and deploy the flotilla. Admiral Toscano has asked for a task force, and now Lot has given him one. Now it just needs to be deployed. The task force will quickly be stationed in the waters off the coast of Pernambuco, where the fishing violations are at the worst. There, Arnaldo will ensure the task force destroys any pirate ships that they see and send rogue fishing craft back to Africa. The intervention will take some pressure off the administration, but the fishermen will be back. Where Arnaldo deals with the immediate problems, it's up to Lot and Quadros to think of a more permanent solution to the Lobster War. Lot was sat reading the latest documents that covered his desk. Now reports of piracy and illegal fishing just off the coast of Pernambuco had been reported to the government. Their main ports of origin, the German colony of Central Africa, and the numerous West African states. Lot coughed before saying, "This is a matter of national security. We have to stop this lobster war immediately." Across his desk sat Odilio Diniz, his war minister, who was smoking a big cigar. His face had grown angrier as the meeting went on, and the numerous reports of a breach of Brazilian waters had been discussed. Right next to him was Admiral Arnaldo Toscano, the man who was dealing with these threats in the north. Toscano looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes. Notably, Vice President Quadros was not there, Lot having decided not to invite him to this meeting. I've been trying to stop it. I've already directed for 2 destroyers to confront the pirates and fishermen, but the slave's resurgence is more widespread than we had thought initially. Odile chuckled at that and muttered in his breath. The might of the Brazilian Navy could not defeat a few pirates. Unbelievable. Lot gave Odile a quick but stern glance and did not say anything in response. Arnoldo continued, undisturbed by Odilo's comments. Pirates continued to harass our fishermen and attack tourist boats. It was only a few months ago when the wealthy Japanese couple had been taken hostage by pirates while out whale watching. The Sidolian and further pirates harass our waters. There are simply too many for just two destroyers to deal with. Meanwhile, subsistence fishermen from West Africa and large commercial fishing ships from Central Africa continue to illegally enter our waters to take large amounts of fish. The Central African ships mainly for our prized lobsters. As I have stated, two destroyers are simply not enough. I'm requesting a larger task force to stop this threat once and for all. Lot remained quiet, thinking about all the possible courses of action, what may happen depending on his choice. After about 10 seconds, Lot spoke. Arnaldo, you will have your task force. But our choices may have some serious ramifications. You want to do just 25%? We can't even up it. Oh, it's time once again for Brazil's political parties to gear up for election season. This year's election, 1/3 of all Senate seats are up for election, one in each state. The power struggle between the UDN and the coalition of PSD and PTP hangs in the balance, while the PSP looks to establish itself as an electoral force. Voters around the nation will get the chance to shape Brazil's future. I don't know who I want to go with. I think I'll go with the PSD. Just because those are the guys I'm going with now. I'm playing with now. Candidates, incumbents. So he's the incumbent here. We'll campaign there. And we got a couple options here. Oh, we already have a campaign currently active. Interesting. Okay. So I clicked that a little bit too hastily, it seems. That is my bad, it seems. But we'll secure it. We got a solid base here going for us. Okay, this is starting to make a little sense, actually. Okay. Okay, yeah, I'm starting to get it. Well. Ashbia, interesting. I'll keep this open just so I can, know when I can do the next thingamajig. Hello, my old friend. This is your governor, Adamar de Barros. I'm calling to bring up an arrangement we spoke about earlier with, man on the other end, a prominent business owner and politician in Sao Paulo, hung up. De Barros stared at the receiver for a solid 5 seconds before sighing and crumpling up back in his chair. Shit. He picked up his pen, crossing out a name on one long list and adding it to another. One more traitor. Ever since his loss in the election, many of his more tenuous supporters had swapped sides. He'd been calling jumped-up bureaucrats for hours now, putting on his usual easy air of confidence with increasing difficulty. De Barros wasn't made for calls. He wasn't made for fake niceties, for endless appeals to idiots with frail egos. He needed to be out there, shaking hands and kissing babies, leading a rally or inspiring a crowd to action. Action! Worthless bureaucrats weren't going to win him his rightful seat. Action was. De Barros leapt from his seat and strode quickly out of his office, beckoning for his secretary right outside to follow him. Surprised but not unusual at these kind of outbursts, she hurriedly grabbed a stack of papers and awkwardly vaulted her desk. No, unplugged my headset, damn it. Running after him as he ducked into the hallway. Take the rightmost sheet off my desk and print 50 copies. I trust you still have a list of instigators. Yes? Good. Give him a call. Tell him to ramp up recruiting and rallying. It's time to pull this back. Bowers was already climbing into his car when he turned back around with a slight grin. I'm going to go stir up trouble. Collect as much scrap scrap paper as you have when I get back. It's time to revise old plans and draft up new ones. DeBarros is back, baby. With that, he sped off into the streets of Sao Paulo. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have to cut it here. Thank you as always for watching, however. If you like this video, leave a like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you want to see more of this content in the future, hit the sub button from uploads every weekday, as well as occasionally Saturdays. If you have any comments, feedback, concern, leave them in the comment section below. I read all the comments again and appreciate any and all feedback you might have for me. If you want to chat, play games, and any sort, check out my Discord. If you want to send feedback to my month at Patreon, if you want to see me do sort of live, I have a Twitch. I'll put your down description box below. That's really about it, ladies and gentlemen. My name has been Dogbot53. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.